All right, I just finished welding up the beams, the spindle uprights, and tie rods for the Ranger build here. Got the steering arms and the gussets all welded on those spindle uprights, and then we've got the brake tab there for the calipers on the backside. So got those all done up, looking good. Beams needed shocks, the bump stops, and the radius arm tabs all welded up. Got all that stuff done. And now, next thing on the list moving forward, this stuff's ready to get painted. We're gonna get some paint on this stuff. And then I'm going to be working on the spindles. The spindle snouts, this is what we're using. This is an OEM Dana 44 Ford spindle. And how they come on an OEM truck is with 6 bolts. The cast knuckle has studs sticking out, and then this slips on and you put 6 nuts on it. But for what we do, this is my spindle upright design. It's a snout block. This is a slipped machine fit, so that fits right in there with like a 1/1000th clearance. And then I have 12 bolts there drilled out, you see, and tapped. So a bolt goes through there, and then I even put nuts on the backside too. So what we're doing is I'm going to throw these in my CNC machine with this fixture here I have. This is a fixture I made for doing this job. What it does is it's got the bolt pattern. It's got 12 bolts, so 6 of them. We'll put this guy in there like that. We'll throw it in the machine and orient it, and then that'll allow me to come in and drill 6 more bolts in this pattern and make these things 12 bolt. So that's what we're working on today. Get this wrapped up. Just like that, we got the machine and tools all set up. Got a program in here, fired it up. Just coming down to check the drill before it starts drilling. I always like to check with my distance to go numbers here. So we got to go down 13 more thousandths. We're still 0.18 above my Z-plane, which Z-plane is set to the top of this right here. We picked up the center of that hub. And now we're going to come in here and pop 6 more holes around in there. And there we have some 12 bolt Ford Dana 44 snouts. All machined, ready to go. I did end up having to, I didn't have the right size drill for the clearance hole I needed, so I had to drill it and then end mill it out, but nice thing with a CNC mill, we can do that. So we got those done. I went ahead and GoPro died, but got quite a bit of more stuff done. I got the beams, the spindles, uprights are all painted. This has been drying all day, and now we can do reassembly. I went ahead and pulled the heims, the uniballs back out of these, so now we got to do a little prep. Those uniball cups in there got paint, so I'll end up sanding that back out, getting that paint sanded out of there. Same with this machined surface in there that mates to the boss on the bottom of these snouts. That'll get ground out. I'll clean that back up, and then I can reassemble all this stuff. Put the heims, the uniballs back in the beams, and went and got some brand new grade 8 hardware so we can bolt the snout blocks on there, or the snouts on the snout blocks. Got Heims and Unimalls back in the beams. Got snouts all bolted up. You can see we got some grade 8 hardware all in there. So that stuff is ready to reinstall. But before we do, we have one more welding task. Well, I guess a couple, but it's all the same thing. We got to do a few more weld washers. So if you've been watching the build on this Ranger, we already went ahead and added weld washers to some ovaled out spots on the rear of this chassis that was allowing stuff to flop around. And now we're going to do the same to the front. All this stuff is single 3/16. It doesn't have any weld washers on it. Now the front holes are not ovaled out. These are actually still tight. However, the bolts that were in there, if you look at it, also then like with a washer on there, they have 1/8 inch washers. Our threads are in that back hole. So eventually, those could wallow out. Now, beam pivots do not take as much force. The way the suspension works, there is not a lot of force load on the actual beam pivot. Most of your force is out at the end where the hub and the tire is out here in that bulk. But what we are going to do is we're going to change out the bolts. That was the old bolt, and we're going to change it out with the proper size. So we got another 1/2 inch here of shank. Now, what's going to happen is, you can see that if I hold it up there, we're sticking out. But this gap that's sticking out is more than in 1/4 inch, which would be 2 of the 1/8 inch washers stacked on top of each other. So what we need to do to get that correct, and it's going to sit something more like that, is we need to add some weld washers on there. These are some 3/16 washers that once those are on each side, and then with a just an actual bolt washer, we will have a shanked bolt. And then we're also gonna, it's one of those things that right now it's torn apart. It's not an issue right now, but we don't want it to be an issue ever. So why not grind that paint off. We'll slap one of these on each side and we'll get them welded up. We're gonna end up doing the beam pivots we gotta weld up. We're gonna do the radius arm pivots that we gotta weld up. And then we still also have to do these upper shock tabs. These things are loose. So I have some different smaller weld washers for that. I'll have to pop the hood off for that. But that is really the last task for me to get done before I can fully reassemble all this stuff is kind of picked everything up. I'm going to clear out these radius arms and we'll get in here and weld all that stuff up and then be good for reassembly on the new beam kit. have the Ranger sitting outside on its own weight. I was bleeding the brakes there in the last bit of that video. Since then, got obviously a lot of everything else done. Got everything else done. Got the shocks back on it. Got everything all tightened up. Set up the steering. Getting the alignment done with a tape measure. All that type of stuff. If you, I guess, want to see more of that type of stuff, how you align these things like that, you have to mention it in the comments, and we'll try to put it in another video. But for now, I skipped all that stuff. I got so excited. That's really why I skipped it. I just was getting so excited to get this thing out of the garage and be at the end of the build that, yeah, didn't worry about the GoPro, and we got it done. So the Ranger is out of the shop. Check out that stance. Much better than what it was when it first came in here with the old beam setup on it. We got the old beam stuff here. And now, with the setup, we've got proper camber on the tires. That'll help body roll issues a ton. And with everything else, the whole entire truck, before I started working on this truck, it came to me last fall to get a tilt hood. That was the project that this came in for. And then there was some noises in the back, so I tore the back apart, and we found that the whole entire truck was just single plate 3/16 for all the tabs, the suspension, the shock mounting, everything on the truck. And so what I did is welded those up, added some weld washers to everything, put all new bolts in it that are shanked properly, and took care of the rear. Well, we had to do the same on the front. So that's what a lot of this video was welding up weld washers on there. My beams, everything I build comes with double walled up, so you get 3/8 on everything. You can see in there like those shock tabs, stuff like that, the steering. The truck also only had a single shear pitman arm on it to begin with. It was running the OEM knuckles, which only had single shear out at the knuckle. So those are all different things that of why we put this beam kit on here. You know, now I built a pitman arm. It's double shear now. The my knuckles are double shear. So everything on this suspension now on this whole entire truck is completely replaced. All the bolts are replaced. I shouldn't say everything. The heims are all the same. Heims and stuff are good on a lot of things. We reused the radius arms. Those heims are all good to go. The radius arms, there's nothing wrong with the radius arms. I made those work with my beam setup. The beam pivots were left on the truck. The swingers we left on the truck. What I was able to do was I was able to use CAD and draw that location on my computer, and then I drew these beams out accordingly with the proper geometry to get the camber that we wanted. So that's how I did that. Just a bunch of working on a computer, drawing stuff up in Fusion 360. That's the cam software that I use. So now we have a Ranger here that is, I gotta say, I think it's looking pretty sick. You know, I might be biased, but someone says I like beams around here. Oh yeah, there's another one. That right there, the Chevy's back. Very first beam kit we did. So that is the beam kit number 1 over there on the Chevy, which is a slightly different. That truck has a 91-inch track width. This Ranger is about at 87 inches. So with the different track widths, this is actually a different beam. So everything about these beams, they look the same, but they're just a scaled down version. So now I have 2 different beam kits available. Depending on wheelbase, you know, I could make that one. You really could stretch that out to like 88, maybe 89 inches if you wanted to. And then same with the Chevy, that's about, I could narrow that up to about maybe 89, 90 inches. So with those 2 different beam kits, we could pretty much beam swap the world. If you got anything that needs beams, hit me up. But for now, back to this. Ranger, pulled it out of the garage so I could rinse all the dust off of the roof. The thing had about a ½ inch of shop dust, grinding, sweeping, you know, all that stuff. Came in last fall, so all sorts of just dust sitting on this thing. I sprayed that off, took it for a little cruise, and yeah, very happy with the beam stuff now. Oh yeah, got some, man, they're so bling. I can't even get the camera to focus on them. There we go. The Dune Hippie Machine, Dana 44 hubcap kits. I got those installed on there as well. So super pumped with where this thing is at. Next on this is, like I was saying, it's the tilt style hood. We've got the one-piece clip is sitting up on the Chevy here, and that's going to be the next project on that thing. I've also got to pull the rear shocks, and those rear shocks need rebuilt, and we're going to do a tilt forward hood. I have had some ideas now that I got that hood off. I've been having some ideas coming to me about doing some CNC machined like hinge style brackets off of this tube here. So we'll get more into that into the next video whenever I get to it. And yeah, that's about it for the Ranger. I was able to sweep out my shop, clean it all up. It was super, super dirty in here underneath the thing. So it's always a good feeling to get something pulled out, go through the shop, clean everything up. You can see I got a whole bunch of shocks on my rack. I got more over on the other side. I got to spend a couple days doing shocks now, get caught up on those. And then we also still the Chevy. So we have beam kit number 2, or I guess for Ranger kits, that's Ranger kit number 1. We have Chevy kit number 1 over there. That truck is back for some odd and end things that we're going to be working on that here in the future. And then we've got beam kit number 3, which is a number Chevy kit. So I guess Chevy kit number 2. However you want to look at it, we got all sorts of beam trucks around here. Super thankful for that. Super thankful for the owners of these trucks. As soon as this Ranger is done, we're going to be jumping hardcore back on this thing. Getting those beams all done on there. There's a cage going in there as well. So yeah, I am super happy with how that Ranger kit turned out. We solved the issues that we were looking for. The camber was the big one. This thing had a lot of camber before, but now she is looking good. Drives really nice. We'll once I get the rear shocks done and the tilt hood done, we'll get this thing back onto the sand, do a little bit more shock tuning. When I have those rear shocks apart, I'm going to do some stuff that I do. I guess I won't get too into it. I got to keep some of my secrets, you know. There's a reason why the Dune Hippie Machine stuff works. And I can't tell you all that stuff. Anyways, thanks for watching my channel, the Dune Hippie Build, where, if you can't tell, we build I-beam trucks. We'll see you on the sand. Catch you next time. Peace.